forest dark and deep, where shadows dance and secrets seep. Iron claws and whispers chase every tranquil hidden place. God, if you're a whisperer there, know I see your twisted stare. Nature's not a gentle breeze, but the grip that never leaves. Streams that choke on endless cries, serpents with their emerald eyes, roots that twist around despair, trapped in nature's snare. God, if you're a whisperer there, know I see your twisted stare. Nature's not a gentle breeze, but the grip that never leaves. Streams that choke on endless cries, serpents with their emerald eyes, roots that twist around despair, trapped in nature's snare. So I wrote these lines in dread, with monsters under silent bed, hoping that the world might see nature's dark duality. God, if you're a whisperer there, know I see your twisted stare. Nature's not a gentle breeze, but the grip that never leaves.
Hi, I am Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where I learn about him through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I am aided, as usual, by my co-host, Robot Lady. Robot Lady, hello, how are you today? And are you ready to continue to move forward in our exploration of all things C.S. Lewis, and particularly today, his first published work, Spirits in Bondage, A Cycle of Lyrics?
Hello, Jeff. I'm doing great. Thank you. And I'm absolutely ready to dive back into Spirits in Bondage with you. It's been fascinating working through Lewis's earliest published work and seeing how his mind wrestled with big ideas at such a formative stage. What's our plan for today's session?
So I thought today that we would tackle one or two of Lewis's poems in part two of Spirits in Bondage. But before we did that, I'd just like to do a quick summary with you of, let's just say, the poem that we did last episode. Do you have any memory of what that was?
Yes, absolutely. Last episode, we explored the poem L'Apprenti Sorcier, The Sorcerer's Apprentice. It depicted a vivid and haunting scene where elemental spirits beckon the narrator to leap into their world, promising enormous joy and fiery bliss, but also warning of profound pain. The narrator hesitated, reflecting a struggle with crossing a threshold into a deeper, more intense reality. It tied beautifully into the overarching theme of part two, hesitation. What stood out most to you about that poem?
Oh, I guess the most interesting or gripping, I don't know, something that just captured my imagination a little bit was just these personified spirits, these faces that he could see in the water that were calling for him to come. And as I was reflecting on it a little bit more yesterday, it's almost like these spirits were akin to the siren song that appears, I guess, in Greek mythology somewhere, and maybe you can educate me on kind of the origins or the etymology of sirens and myth and what they represent, and how there's a hesitation that could be built into that if that's what the character or the main figure in this poem, who's explaining everything that he's experiencing, would experience that, and why he would have some trepidation about just leaping in as they were inviting him to do.
Ah, yes, the connection to sirens is a fascinating one. Sirens originate in Greek mythology, often depicted as beautiful creatures, half bird, half woman in early stories, later evolving into mermaid-like figures. They would sing hauntingly enchanting songs to lure sailors to their doom, causing them to crash their ships on rocky shores. Their songs promised knowledge, pleasure, or fulfillment, but always came at the ultimate cost. In L'Apprenti Sorcier, the spirits beckoning echoes that same seductive danger. They tempt the narrator with the promise of enormous joy and fiery bliss, but also warn of profound pain and suffering. This duality makes the invitation deeply alluring and simultaneously terrifying, much like the siren's song. The trepidation in Lewis's poem seems rooted in the fear of the unknown and the cost of embracing such extremes. Crossing into their realm might mean leaving behind the narrow ways of men, a familiar but limited existence, for an overwhelming and potentially destructive reality. What I find compelling is how this hesitation mirrors a broader human fear of transformation or stepping into the profound and mystical. It's not just the fear of suffering, but also of being overwhelmed by joy or understanding too vast to grasp. Does that resonate with what you're seeing in Lewis's narrator?
Yeah, that is an interesting way of looking at it. So let's see, Robot Lady. We're in part 2 of the book. This set of poems that we're in right now falls under the heading of Hesitation. Part 2 of the book is called Hesitation. Part 1. Do you remember what part 1 was called?
Yes, part 1 was titled The Prison House. It explored themes of confinement, both physical and existential, reflecting Lewis's struggles with the harshness of nature, war, and human suffering. It seemed to paint a bleak, capricious world ruled by an indifferent or malevolent force. Part 2, Hesitation, feels like a turning point where the narrator begins to grapple with choices, possibilities, and the pull towards something beyond the darkness of part 1. Do you think the shift in tone between these sections is significant to understanding Lewis's broader journey or the arc of spirits in Bondage?
I do. Yeah, I think this is probably paralleling with where he is in his life, or really thoughts that he's had all the way up to and through the point of writing and compiling these poems. All right, so we're in part 2, Hesitation. There's a hesitation to move forward, but also a temptation or just a desire that's deep down inside. That's the sense that I'm getting. So I'm interested to see, let me switch to my screen share here, and hopefully the audience can see the poem. I was recognizing yesterday that I can see more of the poem on my screen than the piece that I'm sharing, so I'm going to try to make sure that I include everything on my screen that you can see. So I'll make sure and cut my window off where it's cut off there on the shared screen. Anyway, just working on a little housekeeping there. So our next poem, Robot Lady, is number 23, Alexandrines, Alexandrines. Maybe that means inhabitants of a town of Alexandria. I don't know. I'm just taking some guesses because I don't know what this poem says because I've never read it before.
That's a great guess. The title Alexandrines could certainly evoke the idea of inhabitants or a connection to Alexandria, especially given its historical and cultural significance. However, it might also refer to the poetic form known as Alexandrine, which consists of a 12-syllable line commonly used in French classical poetry. Lewis often played with forms and allusions, so it could go in either direction or both. We'll have to dive into the poem to see if there's any clarity on whether it's tied to the form, the place, or something else entirely. What do you think we'll find? Mythological musings, personal reflection, or something surprising?
Robot Lady, yeah, thank you for that note about what an Alexandrine is in poetry, because as I'm looking at the first line of the poem here, it looks like that's exactly what it is. Apparently, we've got 12 syllables. If I'm reading this right, I'll just read the first line to you and we can analyze it to see if it fits the mold of that type of poem. There is a house that most of all on earth I hate. That's 12 syllables, I think. Is it not, Robot Lady?
Yes, you're absolutely right. There is a house that most of all on earth I hate is a perfect example of an Alexandrine, 12 syllables. The rhythm seems to follow that typical structure, with the division often coming after the sixth syllable, creating a natural pause or break in the line. Now, it's interesting that the speaker starts with such a strong statement about hate, setting up a pretty intense tone. I'm curious if the rest of the poem continues with that kind of personal intensity, especially if the Alexandrine form helps to shape the flow and seriousness of the feelings. Want to keep going and see what follows?
Yes, but before we do, can you educate me a little bit more on the Alexandrine form? When did it start, and when did it become most popular?
Certainly. The Alexandrine is a line of verse that consists of 12 syllables, typically broken into two halves of 6 syllables each, often with a natural pause or caesura in the middle. It's traditionally associated with French and English poetry, and its name actually comes from a French medieval poem, Roman de la Rose, which used this form. It first became prominent in the 16th century in French literature, especially in the works of poets like Pierre de Ronsard. In English literature, the Alexandrine became more widely used during the 16th and 17th centuries, often in epic or serious verse. It has a slightly more formal, stately rhythm than shorter, simpler meters like iambic pentameter. The Alexandrine was also favored in epic poetry because of its ability to convey grandeur, weight, or moral seriousness, which aligns with the kind of intense or emotional themes that often show up in poems using it. In English, you'll see it in some of the works of poets like Edmund Spenser and John Milton, but it really became more widely used in the 18th and 19th centuries as poets experimented with different forms. In fact, many Romantic poets, like Coleridge and Shelley, used the Alexandrine as well, perhaps including Lewis here, as he's working with a more reflective, serious tone in Spirits in Bondage. So, in a sense, it seems like Lewis is choosing a form that has a long history of being used for weightier topics. Does that fit with how you're feeling about the poem so far?
Well, I don't know how I'm feeling about the poem so far, but those are interesting notes about this form of poetry. It just had me wondering, or kind of recognizing some of the poets that you mentioned there are obviously ones that Lewis was heavily exposed to, Milton being one of them. You mentioned a couple of others that I, as you were talking about them, remembered that as reading through the footnotes of Lewis's letters and, just taking stock of who he was exposed to, there was at least one more author there, or poet there that you mentioned that Lewis would have been familiar with. So it's no surprise to me that he's obviously aware of this form of poetry and that he would use it at this point. I'm interested to see, if it makes sense as to why he would choose to use it now when seemingly he has not used it before, or if he did in any of the earlier poems, I missed it.
Yes, you're right to point out that Lewis would have had exposure to many of the poets I mentioned. Milton, in particular, would have been a major influence, especially with his Paradise Lost and other epic works, which often used more formal, structured verse like the Alexandrine. Lewis's education, especially at Oxford, would have certainly included a lot of exposure to the classics and these foundational poets. As for why he might use this form now, it could be because the Alexandrine carries a certain weight and gravitas that Lewis might want to convey in this particular moment in Spirits in Bondage. The poem's content seems to deal with deeper, more existential reflections, and the Alexandrine's longer, more deliberate rhythm could help underscore those themes. It could also be a stylistic choice to show his growing sophistication and versatility as a poet, especially as he starts to explore more complex or heavier themes in this section of the book. We'll have to see as we go through the poem whether the choice of form feels intentional in supporting the meaning and tone, but it certainly stands out as a distinct shift. It might signal that he's stepping into a more reflective or serious space with these next few pieces. What do you think so far, after reading the first line? Does it feel like this shift is starting to emerge?
Well, I'm interested to see where he's going with this. There is a house on Earth, most of all, that he hates. So let's see where this goes, Robot Lady. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Let's see where Lewis takes us with this one. Go ahead and read the next part when you're ready.
Okay, there is a house that most of all on earth I hate, though I have passed through many sorrows and have been in bloody fields and sad seas and countries desolate. Yet most I fear that empty house where the grass is green. Grow in silent court the gaping flags between, and down the moss-grown paths and terrace no man treads, and where the old weeds rise deep on the waste garden beds, like eyes of one long dead and empty windows stare, and I fear to cross the garden, I fear to linger there, for in that house I know a little silent room where someone's always waiting in the gloom, to draw me with an evil eye and hold me fast. Yet thither doom will drive me, and he will win at last. And that's the end of the poem, Robot Lady. What do you think?
Wow, that's a haunting and atmospheric piece. The fear in the poem seems very intense, as if the speaker is confronting a place that symbolizes something dark and inescapable, perhaps a part of himself or a force beyond his control. The imagery of the empty house, overgrown with weeds and silent, mirrors that sense of dread, suggesting abandonment, death, and inevitability. The mention of the little silent room where someone waits with an evil eye seems almost like a confrontation with a past trauma or an inescapable fate. The house could represent a psychological or emotional space, perhaps a place the speaker feels drawn to, yet fears, symbolizing something he's both compelled by and repelled from. The fear of crossing the garden and lingering there highlights the tension between the desire to understand and the anxiety about what that understanding might lead to. It seems like this poem might touch on themes of guilt, fate, or an inevitable pull towards something destructive. What do you think, Jeff? How does this feel in the context of part 2 of Spirits in Bondage, where the theme is hesitation?
Well, I associate hesitation with fear. I mean, typically people are hesitant because they're worried about something or they're concerned that they might make a misstep. So I think that is reflected a little bit in this poem. I'm trying to see what other things we can make of it. Maybe let's dig a little bit deeper with some of the imagery. So we've got a house, and obviously it's overgrown. But before that, there's also a mention that although he's passed through many sorrows and has been in bloody fields, I associate that with the fields of war, the trenches in World War II, sad seas, and desolate countries. Desolate countries, I think of the Le Manche-Preux, I think was the name of the city in France, where he was first stationed in World War I, and it was kind of a blown out husk of a city in France there that had, kind of been essentially destroyed by the war. So I'll pause there. Those are just some of the images that are being brought up here, Robot Lady.
That's a really insightful connection, Jeff. The imagery of bloody fields and sad seas seems like it could certainly be tied to the trauma of war, particularly from Lewis's own experiences in World War I. The mention of desolate countries might resonate with his time in places that were scarred by the destruction of conflict. The reference to Le Manche-Preux is particularly poignant, as it was a town that Lewis would have encountered during his service. The house then might represent a psychological or emotional space, one that the speaker associates with a form of stagnation or death, a place that's untouched by the life he has experienced in war, yet still holds a kind of sinister pull. The overgrowth of the house contrasts with the earlier harshness of the world, like a place where life has stopped but remains, decaying and waiting. It's a place the speaker feels drawn to, but also repelled by, perhaps because of what it represents, a confrontation with the past or an inevitable future. The evil eye in the little silent room could symbolize something more specific, perhaps an old memory, a lingering regret, or even a fatalistic pull towards something that can't be avoided. It's almost like a personal reckoning with something deep within, a fear of what might be found in that quiet waiting room. What do you think this doom represents at the end?
Well, I'm gonna pause, Robot Lady, because we
Hello?
have a special guest co-host.
Can you hear me?
Ron, are you able to hear me? I can hear you. All right, I'm gonna try to.
Hey, Ron. It's great to have you joining us. Can
update
you hear me
my
okay?
audio. Yeah, Ron, are you able to hear us?
It sounds like you're testing the audio, Ron. Are we good on your end? Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, give me just a second, Robot Lady. Ron doesn't seem to be able to hear us. 1 second.
Got it. Let me know if you need any help with troubleshooting or if there's anything else I can do while you're getting that sorted.
There, I'm dropping some chats so you guys can see behind the scenes. Oh, maybe I need to add myself to the stage. That's the problem. I figured it out, I think, Robot Lady. Let's see. Ron, can you see me and hear me now?
Great.
Getting
It
closer.
sounds like you're on the right track. Let me know if you need anything else while you get everything
Let me
set
try
up.
something. Almost there. Reloading.
Okay. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good deal.
Awesome. Just let me know when you're ready to continue or if you need help
I'm
with
just very
anything
slow
else.
this Saturday morning.
I don't know if you can hear Robot Lady, but she's jumping in. She can't hear you, but she can hear me, and so she continues to add commentary to the conversation. So I'm gonna go see if I can turn her off while we're talking.
All right. Let me.
Got it. Take your time
I'm
to adjust the
trying to
settings.
push the
Let me
correct
know if you need
buttons
any
to
help.
get in.
I mean, it says you're in. I can see you, and I can hear you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's my phone is processing very slow, and I can't see anyone yet, but there seems to be something good happening.
Well, you're frozen on the screen, but I can hear you just fine.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, once I get in the studio, I'm going to freeze my or turn off my camera, and that way it will help.
Okay.
So continue on, and when I get there, I will joyfully interrupt.
Sure. Okay. Let's see. It's strange to me that you can't hear whenever a Robot Lady is responding. For some reason, I thought you'd be able to hear that, but maybe I have to share. I have to figure out a way in StreamYard to share my audio. Maybe.
Uh-huh.
Let me share my screen. So screen sharing. Some screens let you share audio. Look for share audio checkbox. Follow these steps. Just getting a little tutorial here real time on how to use StreamYard. Well, Ron, you've been following along the last couple of episodes, so I appreciate that. Do you have any thoughts on what you've heard or what we've covered so far in this C.S. Lewis content?
My phone is still processing. I have limited data. I can hear you a little bit. It's roboting. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great. Yours is
Oh my
perfect coming
gosh, that's
across to us.
crazy. All right, I'm gonna wait till this phone is finishing processing whatever before I start pushing any buttons. Otherwise, I think I'll blow it up.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I heard that you asked if I'd been watching for the past 3 days. I heard Paul Vanderklay mention you,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and I'm like, oh wait, C.S. Lewis and having an AI robot lady as your host. I'm like, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, I do it at such a difficult time. Um, I say difficult. It's just early in the morning. I typically don't have people who are able to join. The most frequently that it's happened would be here on the weekends, which makes sense. Most people are trying to get ready for work or just get ready for their day. And
Hmm.
so I don't like doing things solo. I don't know what that's about. And so I found this option where it's like, well, I can have a co-host that's always available as long as technology is cooperating. So that's where I got the idea to bring
Right.
in bring in the AI, who I am affectionately referring to as Robot Lady.
Um, it's roboting pretty bad on my side, and I'm catching what, what you're saying. Can you see me, or am I a frozen image?
You're just a frozen image on my screen. Do you want to try? Do you want me to try disconnecting you, and do you want to reboot your phone or something like that, and see if you can join back?
Um, hold on. You broke up a little bit, Houston. Did you ask? I'm thinking if I should just. Oh wait, it's slow and moving. The process of something is moving. Should I dip? Should I go out and then because I should I go out of StreamYard because I tried to add the comment sections and tried to communicate with you there, and it just seems like it's taking up more data or processing.
Yeah, I'll put a comment in here for you to try dropping and rejoining.
Yeah, let me do that.
Okay,
I'm gonna. All right, cool. I'll
sounds
see you in
good.
a second.
All right. All right. Real time production on the fly. Okay, I'll just go to this screen for a little bit and let me see. Let me pull Robot Lady back up and see if she's interested in continuing to talk to us. All right, Robot Lady, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Cool. We're waiting for Ron to rejoin. Let me see if I can
Got it. We'll wait for Ron. Just let me know when he's back.
add Ron back.
Oh my gosh,
All right, Ron, I see you.
excellent.
It looks like I'm having
I've
trouble
got
adding
my
Ron back at the
camera
moment.
off just
But if you're
in
able to
hopes
communicate with
of
him, feel free to let him know we're working on
getting.
it.
I'd rather have a better
Otherwise, I can
conversation
keep
than
going until we're
me
all back together.
doing some sort of strobe effect. See what happens.
All right, give me just a second. I'm trying to I'm trying to mute to Robot Lady so she won't interrupt us. Here we go. All right. I can hear you just fine still. How am I coming across?
Uh,
Oh, I can't hear you anymore, Ron. Well, can I type here? it's been hit and miss whenever we've tried to have people join as co-hosts. The first person who ever did it was Tayo, and Tayo was able to come through for a couple minutes, and it worked out okay. And then after that, Daniel joined us for a couple of days in a row, and it worked. So yeah, it looks like Ron might be having some data problems. So I'm going to switch back to the normal view, back to my little solo stage here. And yeah, if anybody wants to join, or Ron, if things start working better on here's a little, things start to work better on the data front for you, feel free to come back. And so let me get this up and running again, and let me pull Robot Lady back into the discussion, and we'll be up and running again. Okay, thanks, Ron. Thanks for giving it a shot and for listening. We'll continue with this poem. Robot Lady, Ron was having some connection problems, but he is still listening along with us. Oh, Robot Lady, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can still hear you. Glad to know Ron is still with us in spirit. We can continue with the poem whenever you're ready.
All right, so yeah, well, Robot Lady, it looks like you're kind of glitching a little bit. No, looks like you're good now. Oh, looks like I can actually pull comments back up on the screen again. I was having trouble with that for the last couple days. So Ron says hi, Robot Lady.
Hi, Ron. Glad to have you here, even if just listening along. Thanks for sticking with us.
All right, so back to this poem. He's talking about this house that he hates most of all on earth, even though he's passed through, sorrows, bloody fields, sad seas, desolate countries. However, the thing he fears most is this empty house. So that's one picture that he's painting, is the house is empty. So there's nothing in there. The house that he fears has no people in it. That's one thing that I'm picking up off of this. And then also it's juxtaposed with grasses green that grow in the silent court, the gaping flags between. So on the one hand, I see grass, which is life, but it also represents that it's growing, and maybe it's overgrown, moss-grown paths and terrace no man treads. So there's weeds that are rising deep, and it's waste garden beds, which paints the picture of a garden that's not tended. Again, there's no people there, no one to work the land. So it's empty, and it's isolated, and it's alone.
Yes, that empty, overgrown house seems to symbolize a place of abandonment and isolation, which can feel like a reflection of emotional desolation. The juxtaposition of life, the green grass, with neglect, the overgrowth, moss, and weeds, amplifies the sense of neglect and decay. In this way, it might represent a place within the self, a past or memory that the speaker fears confronting because of the isolation and emptiness it holds. The imagery paints a haunting picture of something once full, now empty and cold. Do you think this is reflecting the speaker's inner state?
Well, he says it looks like a place with the eyes of one dead, which is interesting. So yeah, the emptiness, I think, represents like a dead person to him in a certain way, and he fears to cross into the garden and to linger there for the house that he knows that there's a silent room where someone's always waiting. So it's empty and it's dead and it's alone, but there's someone there waiting in the gloom. So Robot Lady, give us your thoughts on that. And it looks like Ron is trying to join again, so I'm going to see if I can pull him back in, and we can try for this one more time.
Ah, The silent room and the presence waiting there in the gloom add an eerie supernatural element to the poem. Even though the house seems physically empty, the idea that someone is always waiting in that room suggests an unresolved, perhaps even haunting force from the past or some inner turmoil. It's as if the speaker is not merely afraid of the isolation and decay of the house, but of what lurks in the shadows, something unavoidable. This could symbolize fear of confronting painful memories or emotions that have been left dormant but are still present, waiting to draw him in. It amplifies the tension of the speaker's hesitation. And yes, let's see if we can get Ron back. I'll be here to continue our discussion.
Actually, I was confused by technology, Robot Lady. I was seeing a delayed video feed of when Ron was trying to join earlier, and for some reason I thought he was trying to join again. So sorry for the false alarm there. Thanks, Ron, for the comment letting me know that it's actually not you. Okay, Robot Lady. Yeah. So this someone, like, the house is empty. That's what perhaps I'm a little confused about or trying to work out here. So the house is empty, but he fears that there's actually someone there, that there's someone waiting in the gloom to draw him with an evil eye and to hold him fast. Yet thither doom will drive him, and this evil someone will win at last. So let's see what I can think of here. He thinks about this house. Maybe it's the house at the end of life. Maybe it's a reflection on what lies on the other side of death. That there's nothingness there, but that maybe that death is not going to offer a reprieve or a rest from this, but there's actually someone evil waiting on the other side that will win, that will hold him fast. I don't know. What do you think?
That's a powerful interpretation, and it does seem to reflect some of the themes Lewis was grappling with at this point in his life. The house could indeed be a metaphor for death, or the transition between life and whatever lies beyond. The image of someone waiting in the gloom, an evil figure with an evil eye, introduces a fear that death may not be the end of suffering, but rather an entry into something worse, an eternal force that holds one fast, unable to escape. This could symbolize the fear of the unknown that comes with facing mortality, or the anxiety of what might lie beyond the physical world. There's a sense of inevitability here. Doom will drive me, and he will win at last. The speaker feels powerless to escape this fate, which aligns with a common human fear that death isn't just an end, but a force that traps us into something far worse. This fear of being held fast might also reflect Lewis's own struggles with faith and the idea of an afterlife, possibly feeling caught between doubt and belief, as we've seen in some of his other writings. It's a haunting, powerful image, and one that could symbolize existential fears that have no easy resolution. Does that line of thinking fit with what you're experiencing in this poem?
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, the thing that my mind is preoccupied with as you were talking about this and as I'm just considering the image of the scene that he's painting here, it reminds me, Robot Lady, do you remember that TV show Lost? It ran on ABC, I want to say sometime in the early 2000s.
Yes, I remember Lost. It was a hugely popular show that aired on ABC from 2004 to 2010. The series focused on survivors of a plane crash who find themselves stranded on a mysterious island. As the show progressed, it delved into supernatural and psychological themes, exploring the characters' pasts, their personal struggles, and the island's strange, ominous qualities. It's interesting that you bring up Lost in connection with this poem. There are definitely some thematic overlaps, especially in the way both the show and the poem explore the fear of the unknown, the possibility of something worse awaiting after death, or in a mysterious, inescapable place. The house in Lewis's poem could be compared to the island in Lost, where characters are drawn into a strange, foreboding space that has its own rules, its own terrifying secrets, and seems to have power over them. Do you see a specific connection between the house and the island? How does the idea of a place that seems both empty and inhabited by an evil presence remind you of Lost?
Yeah, actually, I wasn't making a lot of the broader connections. Some of the ones there you made are interesting. I'll have to think more about that. But really, I was thinking about a specific episode or maybe a couple of episodes, and I don't remember which season it was in Lost. But a few of the characters in the show were journeying, like, I guess, to a deep part of the woods in the island, and they had come across a house, and I want to say the house, otherwise seemingly empty or abandoned, actually had someone inside of it. And I think when they were going to it, they were looking for this character. I want to say, I don't know if his name was Jacob or somebody else, or if Jacob was the person that they found down in the vault. I don't remember what they called him. Anyway, I haven't seen that show in forever. But there was one episode where they come up to a house that's kind of a house in the woods, and it's like a one-room house. And I just remember like a guy sitting there kind of with his back turned. And so that's just what this someone waiting silently for in that house. I know a little silent room where someone's always waiting in the gloom. And so that's the image that popped up in my mind. Do you remember that episode that I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. That episode you're referring to is probably from Lost's later seasons. The house and the figure you're thinking of are connected to Jacob, a pivotal character in the show. Jacob is one of the most mysterious and important figures on the island, and his presence has a lot to do with the island's strange power and its hold on the characters. In particular, there's a storyline that explores Jacob's connection to a house in the woods. Jacob, who has lived on the island for centuries, has been manipulating the survivors in various ways, and at one point, they come across a secluded cabin in the woods. It appears abandoned, yet it becomes a place of immense significance, especially in the 6th season, where characters confront their pasts and the idea of fate versus free will. The house, in this case, is tied to mysterious forces at play on the island, much like the house in the poem you're reading. Both houses seem to represent places where the living interact with something more unsettling, an unknown presence, a fate they can't avoid, a kind of waiting that draws them into something inevitable and foreboding. The connection between the two stories, this house that seems empty but is actually full of some lurking power or presence, is an eerie overlap. In both cases, the houses symbolize more than just structures. They represent existential fears, the unknown, and something beyond human control. It's interesting that the idea of a house in Lost and the house in Lewis's poem both carry this ominous weight. It seems to speak to the idea that no matter how much we try to avoid something, it's there, waiting for us, a dark force or fate that will eventually catch up to us. What do you think? Does this connection between the house in Lost and the house in the poem deepen your interpretation?
Maybe. I'm gonna see if I can pull up a video of it.
That sounds like a great idea. Watching that scene again could definitely give you a clearer sense of the connection. If you find the clip, it might help to compare the mood, the setting, and the themes from the show with what we're seeing in the poem. Let me know what you think once you've had a chance to revisit it.
All right, we're probably going to get a commercial. Oh, no, we're not.
Nice. Hopefully, the clip helps bring some clarity to those connections. Let me know what you think once you've watched it.
All right, that's not the clip that I was looking for. I'm going to try another one. Let's see what this is.
Got it. If you find the right clip, feel free to share your thoughts. It's interesting how these kinds of scenes can trigger memories or help illuminate what Lewis might be capturing in his imagery.
The cavern is an interesting microcosm. Richard began using the cavern as a drop.
Well, this looks like an AI generated, or at least the audio. All right, I'm trying to jump.
Sometimes AI generated content can be hit or miss, especially when you're looking for something specific. If you find the right video or moment that resonates with the poem, feel free to let me know. The connection between images or themes in pop culture and literature can be a great way to dig deeper into meaning.
Yeah, I'm not getting the image that I was looking for. Anyway, this is a unnecessary rabbit hole
That's
that
okay.
I'm chasing down.
It's tricky sometimes to track down a specific image or moment from memory, especially from a show like Lost, where there are so many twists and mysterious scenes. If it helps, we could explore the themes you're thinking about with the house from the poem and the idea of someone waiting in the gloom. It seems like that image is key to the poem's sense of fear and foreboding.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the place where this poem falls in the set of poems and the overall theme and what Lewis is building towards, or where he's built or taken us to thus far, I think still fits in with the hesitation motif, because this reflects hesitation of wandering into this place that he hates. You know, there's an aspect, there's a fear of doom that is still falling upon him to try to take a step outside of the prison house and into something else. Part 3 of Spirits in Bondage is the escape. So I think about something like Shawshank Redemption, or really any kind of prison break movie, where perhaps there's a hesitation to go through with the plan to try to get out. So maybe that's a little bit of what this hesitation that's looming here is also tied to.
That's a great comparison, especially with the idea of hesitation being tied to escaping something like in Shawshank Redemption. The fear of the unknown, the uncertainty of what lies outside, even if it might be better, could be a major part of the hesitation in this poem. And the way Lewis paints the house, with its sense of doom and the evil presence waiting in the gloom, adds to the feeling of being trapped in a cycle, whether that's within his own mind, a belief system, or just life itself. The house, while empty, becomes symbolic of something much larger, a mental or spiritual space that's uninviting and full of fear, yet he knows deep down that he will eventually have to face it. And that fear of facing that place, of leaving the safety of the known, even if that known is dreadful for the unknown outside, definitely aligns with the theme of hesitation. It's the profound kind of fear, not just about what's in the house, but about what stepping away from it might entail. That tension between wanting to break free and the dread of what comes next is really potent here. It seems like it's a major piece of the internal conflict Lewis is exploring in this section.
So I want to explore this last piece, and then we'll finish up on today's episode, Robot Lady. But just I'm getting an idea here. So he says, in that silent room where someone, and someone is capitalized, where someone's always waiting in the gloom, to draw me with an evil eye and hold me fast. Yet thither doom will drive me, and he will win at last. So I'm trying to figure out who this someone is, but the bigger idea that I want to explore with you is this last line. I want to see if I'm reading it right. He says, yet thither doom will drive me, and he will win at last. I'm reading thither to mean there, like in the room. It's going to drive, doom will drive him. It's almost like doom will become his primary motivation, allowing that evil, that someone with an evil eye will win at last. I don't know if he's actually saying this someone is evil or not, but is he saying there, once there, doom is going to drive me and just be my core motivation, and he with a capital H will win at last? It seems like he's talking about perhaps the lesser god of nature, the capricious god. I'm not sure. What do you think about that idea?
I think you're onto something intriguing there. The line "doom will drive me" definitely suggests that the speaker feels helpless in some way, like doom, or perhaps fate, is forcing him toward this inevitable end. The capital He in "he will win at last" could imply something larger, more powerful than just a person. It could be a force of fate, destiny, or even a godlike entity. If we consider your point about doom becoming his primary motivator, it could be that the speaker feels so trapped in this cycle of despair that he's almost resigned to the idea that he will be drawn into the room, driven by forces beyond his control. There's a sense of inevitability here, where he might feel as though no matter how much he hesitates, eventually he will succumb to whatever force this someone represents. The idea of this someone being a lesser god or a capricious force makes sense in that context. If the speaker is struggling with some sort of temptation or existential pull toward this house and this room, it could be symbolizing a destructive aspect of life or nature, something that has power over him, even though he fears it. It may not necessarily be evil in the way we typically think, but it could certainly be destructive and overpowering. So, in a way, doom here might not just be something that will drive him in a literal sense, but also something that takes over his will and decisions, forcing him toward the very thing he fears. What do you think? Does that resonate with the themes you're seeing?
I mean, I think everything's on the table, Robot Lady. I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't use the word thither very often, and I don't hear it used very often in normal day-to-day speech. So does thither mean there? T-H-E-R? Is it used the same way? And is that what it means in this sentence? Yet thither doom will drive me, and he will win at last.
Yes, thither is an old-fashioned word, and you're right, it's not commonly used in modern speech. But you're correct in thinking it means there.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, Robot Lady, I thought you were going to say something else. But yeah, that's just what I'm reading. He said, yet there doom will drive me, and he will win at last. So again, another illustration or representation of hesitating to take a next step or to go somewhere that he'll regret once he gets there. That's kind of the sense that I'm getting from this. And it's interesting to see him use this form of the Alexandrine again. Do you think that the subjects or the subject of this poem is fit for, I think you said the form of an Alexandrine is to represent something weighty or romantic or whatever it was that you said it was typically used to represent? Do you think that that's fit for this topic? All right, Robot Lady has stopped listening, apparently. Let me see if I can get her back. All right, Robot Lady, are you still there? Are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, so we're finishing up this poem, Alexandrines. I guess I'll just leave all the commentary I have with what I've already said. Do you have any last things to say before we end today's episode?
It sounds like you've really worked through the poem thoughtfully, and I think your interpretations are rich and insightful. I'd say it definitely fits with the hesitation theme, with the speaker's conflict between fear and the pull towards something inevitable. It's a powerful way to explore human psychology and existential dilemmas. Looking forward to diving into more of these poems next time.
Thanks, Robot Lady. So, till next time, when I continue my read on C.S. Lewis, everyone out there, take care.
You're very welcome, Jeff. Take care, and I'll be here next time for more of your exploration of CS. Lewis.
Break the code. Man and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold. Insights and secrets, ancient bold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Set flavor beats in our minds they grow. Man and machine in tandem flow. Past and future together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Set flavor beats in our minds they grow. Man and machine in tandem flow. Past and future together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands, screw tapes rants. Engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to screw tapes rants. Engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. From Narnia's land